I am Anthony Newbold. Welcome to A Closer Look and Happy New Year to all of you. My guest this week is the Minister of Financial Services, Trade, Industry, and Immigration, the Honorable Elsworth Johnson. Minister Johnson, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you,
Thank
finally.
You. Thank you very much, sir.
Listen, I said that you took over your ministries at a very interesting time, to say the least. Mm-hmm. And I was going to say baptism by fire, but
yes.
It was more baptism by water, because Dorian overwhelmed all of us.
Yes.
How are you doing with your ministries?
I'm doing, I consider to be doing very well. Having regard to the fact that we're celebrating majority rule, I would say that our God, history, and heritage has prepared us for this day, and so the team and I are doing very well.
Good. Yes. Let's begin with financial services, yes. Trade, and industry, which I'd say is not the easiest, certainly it's the less challenging, I imagine, of your portfolio. You've been doing some traveling with respect to yes. that.
We've done some traveling. We've visited New York and a few other places. The team and I, and when I say the team, members from the Financial Services Board, the Chamber of Commerce, AIBT, and we've been promoting the Bahamas as a financial services center of excellence.
Good. We talk about the Bahamas, and we got to talk about the Bahamas with respect to its position in the world.
Yes.
Sammy Campbell, one of our online viewers of the show, wanted to know, what is the Bahamas' position with respect to the WTO, the World Trade Organization? There's been some controversy, appeals court. What is the country's position?
We're in the negotiation process. We must, Mrs. Shivago Lang, the chief negotiator, has indicated, and I have also indicated, that the accession date was purely aspirational. In speaking with our counterparts, diplomatic counterparts, they realize it. A nation of 400,000 persons wanting to accede to such an organization, there are many things that we have to have in place before we do just that.
Yeah, so you're still talking about it.
Yes.
Given the uncertainty surrounding the whole financial services landscape, is the Bahamas in a position to really, really benefit from financial services any more than it already has, given all the adjustments that you got to make?
We're in an excellent position. And as I said before, the team, we have created Freeport as a tech hub. We're looking at arbitration. Our positioning in terms of our locale, the stability of our government, the stability of our judiciary, makes us an admirable location for financial services. For the past 20 years, all sorts of difficult curveballs have been thrown at us, but we have demonstrated as a people the ingenuity to navigate through them all. And what we're doing through this process is creating new products and services.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, is expansion and innovation part of what is necessary for the Bahamas to keep holding its own in this industry?
Absolutely. Persons want to travel to the Bahamas. As I said before, we are relatively stable. We're looking at the whole industry of cryptocurrency. Central bank has just introduced the sand dollar. We're inviting persons to the Bahamas to come invest and to develop industries. We've been responding, I think, extremely well to the OECD and the Financial Action Task Force with the regulatory requirements, ensuring that persons that come to the Bahamas are not evading taxes, they're not dealing in money laundering or terrorism financing. So we've been doing just that.
And so, talking about financial services, technology and the ability of the local financial services providers to adapt to technology is going to be key in all of this, isn't it?
It is fundamentally important. Minister Kwesi Thompson now heads the technology unit for the Bahamas. Under the UN Development Program, technology plays a key role in what we do. It's critically important that we continue to push for the total digitization of the public service. That would move us more closer to where we want to be in terms of the ease of doing business. And so, for instance, we travel to Dubai. Their entire system will be placed into a blockchain. We have to recognize these things. And with the assistance of the private sector, we're moving in that direction.
Let's talk about a more challenging part of your portfolio. Dorian
Yes.
poured more fuel on the fire that is illegal immigration. And certainly you had your hands full. The government had its hands full with the Haitian nationals coming out of Abaco.
Yes.
Does the government have a handle really on how many of them there were coming out of Abaco?
First, the government does have a handle on it. The law, we're a country of laws. We're governed by the rule of law and international best practices. And whenever there are times of exigency, you follow what the law says. And so you must respect the dignity of the human person. And where persons are justifiably qualified for naturalization, you do that. In the circumstances of Dorian, where persons come to the Bahamas, economic migrants, they enter into working relationships. If there's a breakdown in that relationship where the employer can no longer offer the employment, and we know what should happen, and that persons must be in a humane way encouraged to leave. But what we have done, and I think we've done an excellent job, during Dorian, persons were provided services without regard to their place of origin, sex, religion, or immigration status. And we've been pushing that. There's been a lot of misinformation that's been put out there about the government of the Bahamas and what we have done. For instance, one in particular, a gentleman got on the airwaves and said that we were abusing persons at the facility on Wolf Road. Well, I was there that night. I welcomed them there. I know of the security arrangements that were put in place. I know that social services was there. And so things like this have to stop.
I'm going to ask you some more about the shelters, but we got to take a break.
Yes.
And we'll be back with more. Minister of Immigration, Financial Services, Trade and Industry, the Honorable Elsworth Johnson, after this. Welcome back. You're watching A Closer Look. I'm Anthony Newbold, speaking with Minister of Immigration, Financial Services, Trade and Industry, the Honorable Elsworth Johnson. Let's talk about the shelters for a moment longer.
Yes.
Was there enough of a security focus on those shelters? Because just what you said, and of course some people say that some of those migrants in there, or some of the people in there, they just walked out of there.
There was sufficient security provided. The shelter, the law provides how a shelter is to be designated or established, and we follow the law. Social services will provide social assistance to the persons in the shelter, and we to ensure that persons who occupy those shelters are secured, because you have women and children in there. There's nothing, persons leaving and going from the shelter, there was nothing really to prevent them from doing that, because they're not in custody. And so they still have the right, the freedom of movement.
The challenging part of that, which is what people were focusing on, was some of them may have been here legally.
Yes.
And so if they walked out of the shelter, that they just melted into the...
And there are mechanisms to enforce the law. As I said before, we have to be very careful in dealing with these matters. Persons are traumatized, persons have had a very traumatic experience during the hurricane. You must ensure that you're motivated by reasonable suspicion, because on occasions we've found persons have been identified as non-nationals when in fact they are.
Yeah.
And so there are measures being taken to ensure that only fit and proper persons come to the Bahamas and remain in the Bahamas.
Does anybody have a handle on how many Haitian migrants are in the Bahamas? We've been throwing around numbers for years.
Yes.
40,000 here, 50,000 here, 20,000 here. Anybody has a handle on, a good handle?
Whenever I have a discussion on these matters, I like to try and move the immigration discussion away from one particular nationality. But I understand your question.
Yes.
There has been census done. There is some upheaval in Haiti, and persons are coming and persons are going. But we're trying our best to deal with this matter in a legal and humane way. I cannot honestly give you a figure on how many persons of Haitian heritage are here.
And at the moment, given the situation in Haiti, there's no real likelihood that this flow is going to stop anytime soon, or that we could really expect any great, large amount of help from the government of Haiti in dealing with the situation,
We have a responsibility to guard and protect our borders. That would mean that every Bahamian has to partner with us. And that is the reason why I always speak to the issue of harboring. 5 years imprisonment and $10,000 to ensure that persons, when they employ persons or invite persons here to the Bahamas, that they do it in a proper way. Digitization you spoke about earlier. We're working closely with our counterparts in the Registrar General Department, so we're understanding that some of these marriages are not proper marriages. Certain birth certificates are birth certificates of dead persons. Identity theft is on the rise, and we're experiencing that. And so in the Immigration Department, we're focusing on, we're going to bring in someone to look at our complaints and corruption section. That person, we've identified someone to come in. We have now started this whole issue of customer relations training. We've infused into that secret customers from the industry and from around the world who will assist us. Ongoing professional development training, especially in the law on the rights, privilege, and authority of the immigration officer. We're dealing with those things.
Yeah. Whatever any government does with respect to illegal immigrants, certainly with respect to the illegal Haitian immigrants in the Bahamas, they're going to be criticized, any government.
Well, absolutely.
Well, go ahead, because I was going to say, some people in the wake of Dorian, some people believe that the government was being a little too harsh.
I don't think so. The government said who we are as a people. We're governed by the rule of law, international best practices, and that we will enforce the laws of the Bahamas. During that horrific experience, we had immigration officers on the ground using the facilities to rescue persons. They did not take regard to origin. The administrative facility was occupied by hundreds of persons. We know that some of them were non-nationals. But what we have a responsibility to do in protecting this democratic and sovereign country is to ensure the protection of persons who are here, but also to, as around the world, and the world agrees with this, we have a right to protect our borders. And only persons who are legally here should be here. But those who are justifiably qualified, we're assisting them.
Other than just deport people to Haiti, which is what so many people ask for, do you see an understanding by the citizenry, the Bahamian citizenry, of what is required by all Bahamians to deal with the illegal problem? Is there a good understanding, you believe?
I don't think so. When enforcing the immigration laws, you have to be dispassionate. You cannot have regard for origin, race, sex, religion, or whatever have you. And you have to enforce the law. But what you must do is respect the rights of those who may be entitled. And persons may say, no, we shouldn't grant it. But where they're qualified, you do that. Where they're not qualified, you deal with them properly.
Can we look to any of the international agencies to help us with this illegal problem?
I think, yes, we can.
How much help can we expect to get from them?
They've been doing that. I think sometimes their criticism is being informed by misinformation. And I've had to say that to persons representing the IOM. I was in Brussels the other day, and I had to say that to some of the representatives. There are photos in a book produced by Rights Bahamas, pictures.
And we try to get a shot of that.
Erroneous and fictitious pictures. And I asked the producers, why would you do this? They said it's for sensationalism. I said it's false. And I said to a disgraceful Bahamian man, well up in age.
You need to lock him up.
No, I just said to him that he should be ashamed of producing this. Listen, we invite more than 7 million persons here a year. Our second pillar is financial services. Why would you produce information that is totally erroneous and give it to the world? I was home one day, and they called me and told me that someone was beaten to death. Gentleman was in the detention center, already taken a bath and had a meal, and we sent it out. Nobody said that was false.
Yeah.
If you have a complaint of the ministry of what someone has done, you contact the police if it's a criminal matter, myself, or the director. I want to commend him for, and the immigration department, for the phenomenal work that they've been doing.
And that's good, because a lot of people claim, believe, think that your immigration department bears some culpability for this immigration problem that we have.
Listen, I would be lying to you if I say that there aren't a few sour grapes that we're going to deal with. But by and large, they've worked in extraneous circumstances. We're now focusing on digitization, ongoing professional development training, selecting the leadership core for the immigration department, working with industry to assist us on how best we can facilitate the proper treatment of persons. And we're doing that with persons or in groupings in the international diaspora also.
Think about this. I'm going to ask you when we come back. We got to take another break. But human traffickers, because these people don't fly into the Bahamas, they get here by boat and however else they get here. What are you doing to deal with human traffickers both here and in Haiti? We got to take a break, and we'll be back with Minister Elsworth Johnson after this. Welcome back to A Closer Look. Anthony Newbold speaking with Minister Elsworth Johnson. Human traffickers.
I'm happy that
some here, some in Haiti, and wherever else they are.
And I'm happy that you introduced the whole international component. Immigration is not just about economic migrant. Human traffickers, money launderers, terrorism financiers, and a number of other things we're doing. We have trained persons in the immigration department. One of our roles is to protect persons. We know we've had cases, some tried in court and we were successful, where persons have trafficked persons into the Bahamas. We have the Prevention of Trafficking Act that we ascribe to, and so we are trying our best to train persons, to let them know of certain relationships that they may enter into that may not be in their best interest. Even with work permit holders, to say to Bahamians that, listen, when someone gets a work permit, that is not something to place them in bondage. That's an opportunity for that person to self-determine and for the Bahamas to receive a benefit. And so we're seriously considering the whole issue of human trafficking.
You talk about being in bondage. We're not quite in bondage, but hundreds, maybe thousands of people brought into Abaco, since that's where we started with this thing, to work on farms at what some people consider just above slave wage. Shouldn't we take some responsibility for where we are with this and getting it out of hand? And we, the Bahamian people.
The law has a standard. The Bahamian people we have an obligation. And in a dispassionate way, when persons make an application, because of the time that they may have been in the Bahamas, persons born in the Bahamas, we have to look at them in accordance with the law, and if they are justifiably entitled to do that. But one of the standards that we must reiterate, it is that we require a standard of loyalty, patriotism, and commitment to this country. Yes, the Constitution says that you have a right to apply. It's only a right, just like you have a right to life. But if you commit treason, then you know that you will be put to death and placed in an unmarked grave. And that is critically important as we build this young country. Persons must know that if you want to live and work in the Bahamas, there's an obligation you have to this country. If you want to be a citizen, patriotism, commitment, and loyalty. You cannot demonstrate that you're loyal to another country and want one of the greatest privileges that this country has to offer, citizenship. So I would ask persons in the community to properly disabuse their mind of any notion that you're entitled to something without those three prerequisites.
They're coming up primarily through the Abaco Inagua Passage down there. I know that an agreement was signed to have some drones.
Yes.
You're going to push this further and talk to maybe Cuba as well to see about shutting off that access?
That is a matter for the Minister of Foreign Affairs. But I'd say this. Haiti has done a lot for the region. I think that the region can do more. The world can do more. And ultimately, Haiti bears the responsibility for its own self-determination. We have an obligation to this sovereign and democratic country to protect it and to ensure that the public purse is not overburdened, to ensure that only the necessary numbering of persons who we can properly control are here in the Bahamas, and to do that in a respectful and humane way. And we will do our endeavor best to do that.
There's a problem that has been crying out for years to be dealt with, this immigration thing, certainly one of them. Where would you place this on the list of priorities for the government today?
Immigration is extraordinarily important and is on the top of the list. If someone could enter this country, right, without detection and not through an authorized entry point, they may be a terrorist. True. They may be a money launderer or a hitman. And so when a Bahamian goes to America and you look in your passport, it asks that country to offer you every courtesy. That means protection. And so when persons come here, we have the same obligation, and we have the responsibility to protect persons who are here. And so we should know who's in this country for national security purposes, and to ensure the protection of the individual, that they don't go missing by way of trafficking. And we should not offer any apology for doing what the law affords every democratic and sovereign country. Some of the things that persons would want us to allow here in the Bahamas, you can't do it in America. They send Bahamians here every year.
You mean deport them
back? They deport them back, and we take them because they're our people. And so we should be able, if you are not here in the proper way, to do that, but do it in the right, fit, and proper way. And we've been doing that. And we haven't heard any complaints. And I'm happy, and I want to commend the Prime Minister for leading the way, especially after Dorian, to say that we are a sovereign and democratic country. We're governed by laws and the rule of law, and we respect international best practices. What are they? The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the rights of the child, or whatever have you. And what you would have seen is that none of the international organizations has criticized us. We have an opportunity that's been given to us to safeguard this country for future generations, and we must do that. And the Immigration Department, or the ministry that I've been given responsibility for, will do that. While inviting persons, we want people to come, but we are asking you to come in the right way, because we have an obligation to you when you come, and we want to know that you're here.
Talking about building the country and preserving it, we're about to recognize Majority Rule Day. Mm-hmm. I know your father was certainly a warrior and all of that. Let's end with your comments on majority rule and what we should expect.
First, just allow me to extend condolences to Mr. McDonald's family, senior immigration officer who died. Mr. Conyers is now in the hospital after having 3 surgeries. Our prayers are with him. Our God, history, and heritage has placed us here for this moment. There was a time when education was not ours. There was a time when you and I sitting here could not even be contemplated. Healthcare. A lot has been placed in our hands by putting the batons in our hands. Land reform. The rights of women and children. They used to be raped and robbed. We have to take it to the next level. Leadership has to improve in terms of how we do things. Healthcare has to improve, and we have to become more selfless and asking what we can do for this country rather than what this country can do for us. And I find that there are too many persons in this country who lack the commitment to see that. How do we build a better Bahamas for future generations? And so all Bahamians have that obligation. I want to thank all of those persons, especially our forefathers, who gave so much. Sir Milo Butler, Sir Lyndon Pinlin, Sir Wallace Whitfield, and a number of other persons who gave so much for us to be here today. But I know that I have an obligation for the short time that God has loaned to me to do what is in the best interest of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And I intend to do that for as long as I can.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching A Closer Look. I've been speaking with the Minister of Financial Services, Trade and Industry and Immigration, the Honorable Elsworth Johnson. Remember, you can watch us on Facebook and on YouTube.